in the Hunger Games, like Mr. Girl, there was kind of like barely surviving. There was a lot of broken down things, it seemed like, especially in Divergent as well, where they were still living in the city. That was like falling apart, there were chunks missing out of buildings. And in Shipbreaker, we have the huge ships that are just falling apart that they're all living off of. So I think that's one of the main things to live together. Also, like the social aspect of that, and how like in Divergent, they're broken into like the smart people, and then just all the different social classes. And then also in like Shipbreaker, how there's like the rich and poor, and just the extreme social divides that.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Like how extreme like the gaps really are. Like in Divergent, it's like kind of less, but then like the faction lists are like way below like all people with factions.
I also noticed that they're all like kind of contained in their, I don't know, I guess it's less so for the Shipbreaker book, but because they can get entry place, but they're not supposed to go to ship, so that way it's like pretty, they're all just kind of stuck in there. And in Divergent, end up paying for like kids
I feel like in Shipbreaker there's boundaries too, but it's more like it's not literal. It's kind of like they stay there somewhere else. So they go.
All right, well, about another minute. All right, is everyone getting wrapped up with their discussions? Everyone ready? All right, does anybody want to start by sharing what their group talked about? If not, all right, we're gonna start from the left side and just go across. So it looks like we have 4 groups, so we can have this group go.
We talked about the different setups in the different settings, and that Shipbreaker and the Hunger Games, the like poor people are like really separated geographically from the other class. When in Divergent, they're like all in the city, especially considering how like in Hunger Games and Shipbreaker, it's like so far away. You have to like take trains to get there and stuff. I thought that was a really interesting element for like the relationship between the different classes.
Yeah, that was really interesting too. Just like how they were so, like the way that the people that live so far apart were completely different. The way they lived. I thought it was kind of cool how they were both so similar. That's exactly what I was thinking. Next group on the back.
Well, we talked about how if you took away the environmental aspect, like the storms and all that from Shipbreakers, it would be a completely different story. So that's a really important aspect to the story that kind of drove the story along. It was like the purpose for the way things were, and then it was also like the reasons for things that were happening currently.
Yeah, it's kind of like when we were listening to the author talk the other day, how he like used it as such a critical part, and that's kind of what we thought was one of the cooler parts of that book, is just that it uses the setting as such an important aspect to convey meaning to the whole story as a whole.
Yeah, that's what we talked about too. We talked
about how Shipbreaker was distinct because it focused on environmentalism as the setting, as opposed to Divergent and Hunger Games, which focused on like a world war that created the setting. I thought it was cool how he just like made it more unique and just drove along the story.
Yeah, definitely. Last year?
Yeah, we kind of compared all the settings. We said that in all the settings, like the people were like broken in the sense where they don't really have like places to go, and that and Diversion and Hunger Games, they were kind of like fenced in, so they actually had like a physical sense of containment.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too, the way, there's just something about with the dystopian novels that I feel like it helps you relate to the people because they also focus on like the group of the poor people mostly, and so I think that's just kind of an interesting take that they all sort of have, that I think it helps you relate to the different characters. All right, so next up, Paul's going to lead us in a setting activity.
So going off of settings, we're going to go into